I don't really like the police. At least not in America. I'm not too familiar how police act in other countries. I used to make this joke where I said that I was racist against the police, which sort of implied that I had a negative prejudice against the police or that I judged them all harshly based on the actions of just a few bad seeds. But in actuality, that's not really it. You see, it seems to me that the police in America are problematic by nature. It has little to do with the actual people involved. Like, I'm willing to bet that most police officers are decent people, but just by virtue of their being police, I think you can make certain assumptions about them while they're on the job. It's like an MMA fighter. I'm sure that most MMA fighters are nice people, but if you get into the ring with them, they're gonna try to beat the shit out of you. That's their job. And it's the same with police. Regardless of how nice they are, the nature of the job requires them to be dickheads. For example, police are trained to lie and be coercive. In general, it's safe to say that almost nothing an on-duty police officer tells you is true. Like, if they say that they're conducting random searches because there have been reports of crime in the area, that's a lie. They are attempting to coerce you into waiving your right to avoid unlawful searches. And it's even worse if you're a witness or suspect to an actual crime, in which case you should never talk to the police without a lawyer. And I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but do you know why that is the case? Because police lie and manipulate people. Imagine any other situation where anything that came out of a person's mouth was a lie or an exaggeration. You wouldn't hang out with that person, much less trust them to protect you and your community. I'm not saying that individual police officers are liars by nature. I'm saying the job requires them to lie to people. Now, as I implied before, the police are trained to trick you into waiving your rights. For me, this is probably the most problematic thing about police. We have rights for a reason, and it's the job of the government and subsequently the police to protect those rights, not subvert them. A common example that you see sometimes is when the cops try to trick you into thinking that your silence is an admission of guilt, which of course it isn't. If you've ever seen any cop show, you should know that you have the right to remain silent. And again, this is not specific bad cops being douchebags. This is what they're trained to do. Police are also trained to be aggressive and mean and condescending and violent. They want you to fear them and submit to their authority. This is why they get annoyed when you stand up for yourself, and it's why they get annoyed when you know your rights. They often talk to grown men and women as if they are children, and they often become aggressive and physical when it's not really warranted. And of course, this happens to men way more often than it happens to women, and it happens to non-white people more often than it happens to white people, but I'm not even gonna get into that. And again, I don't think this is specific individual cops being assholes. I think this is what they're trained to do. They're trained to provoke and escalate situations so they have a reason to be aggressive and arrest people. They can get physical with you and push you around even if you've done nothing wrong, and you can't do shit about it. Imagine any other situation where a person could push you and punch you around even if you haven't done anything wrong. That would be unacceptable. And even if you don't voluntarily retaliate, your body naturally tenses up and resists when you're being fucking attacked. But the police can use that to claim that you were resisting. Now, a lot of people think that the job of the police is to protect and serve, and lots of police units, most notably the LAPD, have even adopted this phrase as their motto. But much like the Fox News motto, fair and balanced, this is a myth, and I think almost an intentional troll. First of all, the police can't protect you. There are way too many citizens compared to the number of police for this to be even remotely feasible. Second of all, the police don't have to protect you. The Supreme Court of the United States actually said that. For example, say there's a burglar outside your house and you're scared and you call the police and they don't come. If it were actually their job to protect you, you could sue them for that. But of course, you can't sue the police for that because they don't have to come when you call, and in some neighborhoods, they straight up don't. But that's good because the police don't give a shit about protecting or serving you, as you might imagine by the fact that they're perfectly fine with lying and manipulating you. The main job of the police, on paper at least, is enforcing the law, and that's it. In practice, however, it's mostly just revenue collection. The police have no intention of preventing people from committing crimes, because if they do that, they get to arrest less people and write less tickets, which means less revenue. You think the reason that speeding is illegal is because the police give a shit about driver safety and car accidents? Of course not. If that was the case, then they wouldn't hide and use unmarked cars. They want you to speed so they can catch you speeding and make you give them money. Now, throughout this video, I have made sure to reiterate that I think that this is just the nature of the job and not specifically any individual bad cops. But that's not to say that individual bad cops aren't a problem, because they are. Now, I do think that most cops are probably decent people, but I also think that the job of a police officer breeds asshole at a higher rate than most other jobs. Just think about it. Imagine you could do literally whatever you wanted without fear of retribution. Literally, without exaggeration, whatever you wanted, which, as we've seen many times before, includes murder. Now, I'm sure most of you would probably still be decent people, but a lot of people would not. And that's sort of the situation that police are in, as we've seen before. Now, I know a lot of you will say, but the police have to do all these things to do their job. But I'm like, do they though? Like, would it be a disaster to have cops that you could trust, that weren't overly aggressive, that respected your rights? Like, would that not actually be preferable? I think it would. And this is not even getting into things like racial profiling, which indeed, in many cases, cops are trained and encouraged to do. And there are cops who are noble and who do try to protect people, but those are the exception, not the other way around. So that's why I don't like the police. Because a lot of people like to say, but not all cops are bad. Yes, they are. It's their job to be. That's just me though. I want to know what you think though. Drop a comment. I want to give a shout out to all of the new subscribers. How you doing? Please press the like button and subscribe if you like my hair. Holla.